Before we start with the lecture, we're going to play a video that probably many of you or most of you have already watched on YouTube, but I think it sets the tone for the talk and maybe might be one another person who hasn't seen it yet, so here it is.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. Have you ever done one of these interviews over the camera before?
No.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about the job to get started with. It's not just a job, it's sort of probably the most important job. The title that we have going right now is Director of Operations, but it's really kind of so much more than that. Responsibilities and requirements are really quite extensive. First category for the requirements would be mobility. This job requires that you must be able to work standing up most or really all of the time, constantly on your feet, constantly bending over, constantly exerting yourself, a high level of stamina. Okay.
That's a lot. For how many hours?
135 hours to unlimited hours a week. It's basically 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
I'm sure you'll have a chance from time to time to maybe just sit down here and there, yeah?
You mean like a break?
Yeah.
No, there are no breaks available.
Is that even legal?
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
Okay, so like no lunch?
You can have lunch, but only when the associate is done eating their lunch.
I think that's a little intense.
No, that's crazy.
Now, this position requires excellent negotiation and interpersonal skill. We're really looking for someone that might have a degree in medicine, in finance, and the culinary arts. You must be able to wear several hats. Associate needs constant attention. Sometimes they have to stay up with an associate throughout the night. Being able to work in a chaotic environment, if you had a life, we'd ask you to sort of give that life up. No vacations. In fact, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, and holidays, the workload is going to go up, and we demand that with a happy disposition.
That's almost cruel. That's almost a very, very sick, twisted joke.
But when there's time to sleep or...
Oh, no time to sleep.
Yeah, all-encompassing almost.
That's exactly right.
365 days a year?
Yes.
No, that's inhumane.
That's very insane.
The meaningful connections that you make and the feeling that you get from really helping your associate are immeasurable. Also, let's cover the salary. The position is going to pay absolutely nothing.
Excuse me?
No. Nobody's doing that for free.
Yeah, pro bono. Completely for free.
No.
What if I told you there's someone that actually currently holds this position right now? Billions of people, actually.
Who?
Moms.
Yeah.
Yeah, moms. That's awesome. And they meet every requirement, don't they?
Oh my God. Moms are the best.
Yeah, there's no pay. They're 24 hours. They're always there.
Now I'm thinking about my mom.
Yeah, and what are you thinking about her?
I'm thinking about all those nights and everything.
Thank you so much for everything you do. I know it doesn't seem like I appreciate all of it, but I definitely do.
So, Mom, I want to say thank you for everything that you've done. I love you very much. You've been there through thick and thin. My mom is just awesome. She's awesome.
So pretty awesome, right? Yeah. Thank you, Mom. You two are awesome. So we're going to talk about Mother's Day today. And we can start with just going over the meaning, which we just saw, right? Oh, the light. David, would you mind turning on the light, please? Talking about the meaning of Mother's Day. So the world, our society recognizes the role of mothers, and I can't even put more words into that, right? 24 hours, forgetting about yourself, no vacation, nights without sleep, forgetting about yourself and no vacation. I definitely feel like that. No vacation, right? Ever. But that's the role for mothers, for caregivers. You know, we live in a society that so many men nowadays take this role deep to their heart and perform just as well and with the much love and capacity. But beyond that, beyond this societal recognition of what Mother's Day is and means, we're going to look today into the spiritual meaning. Because when we look at it from the perspective of Spiritism, it adds a number of other layers to the meaning of Mother's Day. So we are going to start with revisiting question 774 of the Spirit's book. And very much, I wish I had read that chapter before putting this together, because it really was perfect to be integrated into the lecture, right? So we're going to revisit some of the things that Claudia was talking about. The idea that looking at this mother role from the perspective of the immortal spirit. So we add different layers. We're also looking at the family from the perspective of the immortal spirit. And what's the purpose of being together in a family? What's the purpose not only of a mother, but of a father, but of a husband, but of, you know, the children? Why are we together? What's the purpose of this family constellation? So in question 774, the spirits tell that for humans, there is something beyond physical needs. There is the need to progress. Social ties are necessary for progress, and family ties are summed up in social ties. Hence, family ties are a natural law. God has thus willed that humans learn to love one another as brothers and sisters. So it goes straight back to what Claudia was talking about. So, besides the fact that we have physical needs that need to be attended when we are first born and we have to help each other so we can survive, there is a much greater need, which is the need for progress. And as we study the Spirit's book, we learn that the main way in which we progress is through society. We are meant to live in society, to live with one another, because each person becomes a tool for my own enlightenment. I get to know myself by relating to you and to you and to you. So we are instruments of each other's enlightenment. So we come together in a society, and family is that very, very first society where we are born in order to progress. Therefore, as the spirits tell Kardec, family ties are a natural law, which we could think for a second is not the purpose of today, but really when I read it this morning, I thought to myself, wow, what are the consequences of undoing family ties, right? Because nowadays in our societies, those ties seem to break so easily sometimes. People move out, you know, people break commitments, kids leave, parents leave, you know, and the family comes apart a lot of times very easily. So I think it's important for us to understand that this is part of the divine law. Now we're going to understand a little further as we go through the talk. So what's the role of the family? So again, in question 775, Kardec asked the spirits precisely what I was telling you, what would be the result of society if family ties were relaxed? A magnification of selfishness. So sometimes without like any judgment, I say this without any judgment, and truly is, but I hear a lot of couples that say, well, we chose to live, we're together, but we live in separate houses, right? And we're doing this because this is really how the relationship works. It's just so much better, right? And so what's behind that is a lot of times an unwillingness to give up, to work on like, okay, I give up a little bit, you give up a little bit, and this negotiation, right? This ability to negotiate, and in negotiating, realizing that by giving up a little bit here and giving up a little bit there, at the very end, you realize that you have a lot more together than you would separate. Now, under the light of Spiritism, the other layer that we add to the understanding of family and parents and kids and all relationships is the role of reincarnation. So we understand a number of things under reincarnation. We understand the reasons why we come together under a family, right? So usually a family is going to be a number of spirits who have affinity and who come together to help one another to continue to progress. We also learn in Spiritism that sometimes in that family, a new family member, a new spirit who has not been walking, progressing, traveling, let's put it this way, together with that family can be born to learn different things, to bring new experiences to that family. So reincarnation explains to us the role of the family and the reasons why we are in the family that we are in. So there's no mistake. Our family is truly the family that we belong and the family that we need in the present moment. So I actually pick up this passage also from the Gospel speaking about reincarnation and the role of family, because in one of our study groups, I believe was the mediums group, I believe, we were talking about family ties and we were talking about reincarnation, and some of us were disclosing the difficulties that we have with this idea of reincarnation. That reincarnation really does not help too much with the feeling of like, okay, I'm going to be together, you know, with my family, with my loved ones. The more traditional Catholic ideas don't help either, because in the Catholic belief system, you know, if, let's say, I am really good and I go to heaven, and let's say my brother or my sister or my cousin is not good enough and goes to hell or elsewhere, right? So, and if that's our, you know, destination, there's no other alternative, so that means that we're going to be apart forever. So Spiritism claims to bring a more consoling idea, because it tells us that we will reincarnate together over and over in different roles. But then we think, well, what if I don't reincarnate with my mom in the next lifetime? Then I'm going to be 60, 70, 80, whatever time that reincarnation is, apart from her. And so for some of us, this idea can be a little difficult. In the Gospel, there is actually a very, very nice text that speaks to that. It speaks to reincarnation, strengthening the family ties. So I just brought a little piece of it. It says, in the spirit world, spirits form groups of families, united by affection, sympathy, and similar inclinations. These spirits, happy at being together, seek out one another. Incarnation separates them only momentarily, because after their re-entry into the errant state, they meet again like friends who have returned from a journey. Frequently, they even follow one another into incarnation, wherein they are reunited in the same family or same circle, working together for the mutual advancement. So reincarnation brings us this idea that, well, there are a couple ideas in here, but one of them is that, you know, once we establish that affinity, once we establish that connection, that makes us truly a family, because what makes a family is the bonds of love and affinity that we develop with one another. So a lot of times we have a blood family member who does not belong to our family, because does not belong yet to this realm of affinity and sympathy and love that we develop for one another. And there are many members outside of our blood family who we truly feel belong to our family through the love and through the affinity that we have developed with them. But the idea here is that the text in the Gospel makes you feel that a period of an incarnation is really a very short period, and that once affinity and love is established, we'll be constantly seeking out one another. We'll be constantly seeking to reunite with one another, share different experiences, because it is the law that we come together in different roles and continue to assist one another as we evolve in our evolution. So I thought that was a very warm idea and very warm the way the text presents in the gospel. So, but when we come into our blood family, right? So we can think of the family just as we think sometimes of the spiritual center, right? The family is a home, it's also a school, and it's also a hospital. A lot of times, much healing can be done. Whomever reads the works of Andrew Lewis sees many and many reincarnatory processes where people were enemies. There was lots of hate between two persons. And a lot of times when nothing else works, when everything fails, then the law of reincarnation will allow for those spirits to come together in the same family as brothers and sisters, as mother and child, so that healing can take place. So from that perspective, it is a hospital. It is a school, because we learn to love. No matter what position we are born in, no matter if we're talking about our husband, our wife, we're talking about our children, our parents, the goal is one, and Claudia talked about that, is to learn fraternal love. And from one life to another, we keep changing positions so that we learn to love one another as brothers and sisters. When we learn to love one another as brothers and sisters, this idea of jealousy, this idea of possession, this idea of my son, my husband, my mother, my family, we start to understand that we are temporarily in this setting, in this set of circumstances, with the ultimate goal to learn to see in one another a brother or a sister under God. If we really integrate this point of view into our lives and into our relationships, it becomes much easier to let people go. In their personal journey, sometimes it's the son who needs to go because it is his individual journey. Sometimes it's a daughter that moves to another country. Sometimes it's a couple where one feels that he needs to move forward. And we understand, as painful as it might be, that we are all immortal spirits, and those circumstances are temporary circumstances, again, to give us a chance to learn to love one another fraternally. So in Spiritism, we're going to learn, and I already mentioned, about the blood and the spiritual families. And I love this definition because it speaks to what a true family is from the gospel. True family ties are not, therefore, blood ties, but ties of sympathy and similarity of ideas that connect spirits before, during, and after their incarnation. So the spirits don't define the true family ties based on the 60 years that you spend, 67. Well, nowadays we live into 100, so let's put the century that we spend together incarnated in the physical body. Because like I said, you can incarnate and you can discarnate and not created an affinity, a bond of affection with the person that was inside your home. So spiritually speaking, family ties, ties of sympathy, similarity of ideas, this deeper connection from one soul to another. Under this concept, we can see how the idea of family expands a lot, right? It's no longer that family that we inherit, so to speak, but it is so many other ways in which we can constitute a family. And nowadays, we have a diversity of families in our world that reflect some of that. So I really like this picture that talks about the roots of a family tree begin with the love of two hearts. So any two people who decide to bring others close to their hearts and develop ties of love and affinity become then, under the spiritual perspective, a family. So here I brought a picture of, you know, some of the different families that we have nowadays. And I put this picture here. The first picture of this blonde American guy with his son. He's actually, the other ones I don't know who they are. But this is a friend of mine. His name is Matt and his son is Dylan. And he has a partner who is not in the picture. But the reason why I put this picture is actually posted on his Facebook page. And at that moment, he was attending the Mother's Day celebration in the school. And he wrote, "I fit right in." So it was like so sweet, you know. Because there he's a mother. He's a father. He's a loving parent. Right? He's the one who opened the door of his heart, of his home, and gave this child a safe place to be educated and to be raised with love. And so he goes, I can only imagine him in this Jewish school with all the mothers, and he's the mother for this little boy. He's a very, very dear friend of ours. Okay, so we talk a little bit about the family, the spiritual view, including the blood and the spiritual family, also about the role of reincarnation, bringing us together for one reason or another. Let's look at the parents' mission right now. So in the gospel, there's also a very beautiful text at the very end that talks about the ungrateful children. But in that text, there's a lot of beautiful ideas about how parents, and Claudine also mentioned that, should deal with their children, which will be, again, immortal spirits, right? Immortal spirits that come to you, and you have a mission with those immortal spirits. I think it always helps to remember that those are immortal beings who God is placing in your care, under your care, for those years, so that you can make a contribution in those people's lives. Personally, I think that the experience of adopting a child gives me a very strong sense that that child does not belong to me, personally, right? So I'm just sharing my feeling. It is very clear to me, and perhaps if you carry that child for 9 months, it may feel a little different. But for me, the experience of adoption makes it clear that God allowed that child to come to me temporarily. So for this time frame, I have the opportunity to make a contribution in the spiritual progress of that child, of those childs that came to me. And so when the spirit comes to you, through adoption, through just natural birth, whatever, the question that you ask is, who is this child? Who is this spirit that comes to my home? And then as a parent, your role is to observe. What are the tendencies that this spirit is showing? Because we can have 3, 4, 5 children. Each one of them are going to be unique, because they're immortal beings that have their own trajectory, their own journey. They bring with themselves, behind those very, very adorable faces, centuries and centuries of experiences. And each one of them are here for a specific purpose in this lifetime. They have specific areas that need to be addressed, that need to be worked on. So you as a parent, your first role is to identify those areas. So some kids are a little bit more, I never thought before I had my own kids that there were sad kids in the world. But there are some kids that already arrive with bringing like some sadness, right? I used to observe on the park this little girl who would never smile, ever. So who is that spirit? Why someone who is 3 years old can't smile? It was always like very puzzling to me to observe that child. And so as we deal with each one of our kids, as our first role, as I said, is to identify the spiritual needs of that child. And then we ask ourselves, what do we have to offer to the child? And I think I can maybe say this with some certainty, that anyone who is a parent maybe had thought at some point, am I good enough to be a parent, right? In the Spirit's book, in the Gospel actually, in this chapter, it says that, you know, whether you're rich, whether you're poor, whether you have psychological knowledge or not, or, you know, it doesn't matter. Everyone is fit to be a parent. Everyone. Because you're going to be the best parent that you can, and that child needs you. That child is within your home for a reason. So no matter who you are and where you are, emotionally, intellectually, psychologically, that is the best fit and the best match. That's very, very important for us to think about, because sometimes we can look up to some other parents and say, oh my God, that person is so awesome with their kids. But they were not meant to be the parents of your kids. I don't care how awesome they are. Those kids who are with you because you were the awesome thing for them. They need you and you need them. And that's why you guys come together in that family. So I was talking to my mom a little bit about it. And she was even sharing with me an idea that she likes every time she thinks about parents' missions and this topic, which is a lot of times you may get a child who is already, let's say, more advanced. If you put it in a scale like from 0 to 10, let's say that child is like 5. And then you get another child who is like 2, meaning less evolved, less conscious, right? Spiritually speaking. And then the one who is more evolved might live this lifetime on a 6. And the one who came to you on a 2 might live this lifetime on a 6 as well, right? So it's like, what is your contribution? How much are you giving and doing and helping that child to progress? And what if the child is an ungrateful child? Because that's a very common and fair question to ask. What if the child fails? After you give everything that you had, all the love that you had at the very end of the day, right? You say, well, my child, you know, didn't go the way I wanted, the way I wished, the way I planned. You know, did you fail? Because a lot of parents will have a lot of guilt around that. And the Spiritist doctrine will tell us that it is your responsibility as a parent to give your best at every moment. Now, what the child does with the gift that you are giving him or her now is his or her responsibility. We are only responsible for what we give. But we are not responsible for the result on someone else's hearts. And what if we didn't realize about the importance of all these roles, and we're just realizing right now, and we have that feeling that maybe if I could have gone back, I would have done so many different things, and I would have had fixed so many different things, I would act in different ways. Well, the good thing is that even though you cannot go to the past and fix things, you have so eternity ahead of you, and you have this idea of reincarnation. You have the present moment where so much can be fixed, so much healing can be done. And you are going to continue to be related to this spirit. And you can continue to contribute to this spirit's life in many ways, as a parent, as a mother, father, tomorrow as a brother, in the future as a child. So reincarnation gives us these awesome windows of opportunity. There is no reason to regret what we didn't do because we didn't know better, when the future and the present is ahead of us, full of potentialities for healing and for spiritual growth. So, not to extend too long, because after all, it is Mother's Day, and I'm sure we all have a lunch to go or something, some sort of celebration. Here's a message from the Gospel, chapter 14. Again, it's the chapter that talks a lot about the grateful child, but there's so many really good pieces in it. Where it says, "O Spiritus, you must understand humankind's grand role. You must understand that when you produce a body, the soul, how incarnate, it's kind of wrong. But the idea is that when you produce a body, the soul that incarnates, it came from the spiritual world in order to progress. Know your duties and put all your love in leading that soul to God. This is the mission that has been entrusted to you, and for which you will receive recompense if you faithfully fulfill it. The care and education you give it will help in its self-improvement and future well-being. Remember that God will ask from every mother and father, what did you do for the children whom I entrusted into your care?" So it goes back to what I was saying before. Understanding that parenthood is a mission. We are giving a mission, the mission of making a contribution on another spirit's progress. Now, you created the body if you gave birth to the child, but the spirit does not belong to you. It's a mortal spirit that was created by God. But this spirit is temporarily entrusted to you, and if you have done your mission, if you have, which is to love and to contribute to the improvement and the well-being of the child, then you should feel joy and peaceful with it, no matter what the outcome is, because you will have done your part. You will have done your contribution in helping a spirit to progress. So here it is. Happy Mother's Day, Parent Day, Family Day, and Love Day to each one of you.